This production is presented by the Thunderball Fantasy Football League. Thunderball Films presents Old, an underdog story where old age and treachery overcomes youth and exuberance in a no man's land for the elderly. Fantasy football. Before you stands somewhat of a jack of all trades, a boat owner, a father, a fantasy football league commissioner. But before settling down and becoming all of these things, Warren Cornelius was a World War II American hero. Serving the United States of America from 1940 to 1942, Warren Cornelius dominated World War II worse than anything that we have ever seen. Seeing Warren now in his old, decrepit state, it's really unfathomable how much of an athlete he was back in the 40s. Warren showed such athleticism back in his prime that athletes such as Don Hudson and Ted Williams tried to recruit him to their teams. Unfortunately for Cornelius, the honor and fame did not last long as he returned to the States and badly suffered from PTSD. To get through the pain, Cornelius would quickly turn to blue cans, whiskey, and electronic racing in his basement. Luckily for Warren, he would have one hobby that could keep him on the right track. Warren would befriend a group of 20-year-old men to accompany him in playing the online sensation fantasy football. Warren would be the commissioner of this league as he had had the most experience of fantasy football, living for 67 years and playing fantasy football before the NFL was even created. Warren and his pals used to listen to games on the radio, writing down the stats on pen and pad, keeping the numbers in their head, and making up their own scores. So finally, the Thunderball League was set, with players of all different ages, shapes, and sizes. Everybody was excited for the league, but unfortunately, not everybody was really certain that Warren knew what he was doing as a commissioner.
Yeah, he didn't really know any of the rules. He started the whole thing, and then you ask him a rule, and the next day, he gives you one answer, the next day it's something different, and he's just like, well, why don't you read the rule book? Well, we asked the fucking guy that made up the rules. So what do you want? It's like, but it's hard to just expect some fucking geezer like that to remember them all. It's a very complicated league, so.
I think that Warren somewhat did know what he was doing as commissioner. It's just he didn't know how to work the technology, Like, we were supposed to have a website and do all this stuff, and, instead we had to fax over our lineups every week to him, and, we couldn't really see the scores or anything. And, anytime we needed to know a rule, he would just send us that page of the rule book in the mail. He didn't know how to text it or post it on the website. So it's not that he was doing a bad job. He was trying his best. He was just too old to know how to work the website and the technology that was needed to run the league efficiently. Aside from being commissioner, Warren also had to actually play in the Fantasy Football League, where he started off with a loss after loss after loss after loss, only winning 2 games within the first 6 weeks, only securing victory over the league morons Paul Matthews and Nick Miller. Warren would become desperate for a big win, once again looking to alcohol to solve his problems. Warren would get too drunk to even remember making this trade, and at the time, it looked like the absolute worst move in Thunderball history, outside of anything that Nick Miller has ever done. Warren would trade away rookie running back Clyde Edwards-Helaire, a 2021 first-round pick, which at the time looked like it could have been the first pick in the draft, for running back Kenyon Drake, who was on a pretty big contract, and Michael Thomas, who is on arguably the worst contract in the entire league. After this, it looked like all hope had been lost for old man Warren, but somehow, by the grace of God, he managed to go on a 5-game winning streak late in the season to sneak his way into the playoffs. In the first game of the playoffs, the commissioner would head up against a nightmare matchup in Matt the Swinge Swag Dagger Swearingen. A team labeled as not the A-team was arguably the best team in the entire league at this point. Fortunately, that did not matter to Warren as he extended his winning streak to 6, once again carried by the connection of Aaron Rodgers and Davante Adams, and a team that was once looked at as arguably the worst in the league was now in the championship of his own league. The stage was set for somewhat of a surprise championship game as Warren had came back from the depths of hell, defeated Matt Swearingen, and got to the finals where he would face off against Nick Ellis, who was the 4 seed in the semis, after pulling off the biggest upset in the season, knocking off Alex Clark. Warren and Nick would hop in the car at midnight on Christmas night to head all the way down to Tennessee to be with Vance for the championship game. After a long car ride of trash talk and getting really excited for the championship, we arrived in Clarksville where there was no internet, no TV, no signal or anything because some asshole decided to bomb the AT&T building in Nashville. Little did I know that this was a plan of Warren's all along. He had much more experience than me in fantasy football without having any connection to technology. Just like when Warren created his first fantasy football league in the 50s, he didn't have a phone, a TV, or Wi-Fi to be able to keep track of the game, set his lineup, or do any research. It wasn't clear to me at the time, but I had clearly been bamboozled by the commissioner of this league. The finals were set, the games had started, and we were unable to watch any of the 1 o'clock games. We sat in the living room trying to refresh our phones, waiting for Vance's furniture to get there, wondering who was going to be the champion of this league. We were able to get to a B-dubs halfway through the 1 o'clock games, and to my surprise, my team was dominating Warren's, as David Johnson had popped off for 30 points, and everything was looking great for the Indianapolis football team. Now there was one question going into this week. Who would I play at quarterback? Justin Herbert against the Denver Broncos, or Josh Allen against the New England Patriots? My plan all week was to go with Herbert against Denver, as he put up 30 last time against them, while Allen only put up 12 against the Patriots. But for some reason, at the last second, I had a thought that I should put Josh Allen in. I went to make the change on my phone, but the game had already started. I didn't account for the time change in Tennessee. Even with Justin Herbert only putting up 18 points, I was still up by about 70-ish points going into the Sunday night game, where I still had A.J. Brown and Warren had Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams. The game between the Packers and the Titans would be held in 14-mile-per-hour winds, where normally teams would not be throwing the ball very often. But that did not stop Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams as Warren's miraculous season continued, as Aaron Rodgers threw 4 touchdowns and 3 of them going to who else but Devontae. The game and the season was ended on that Sunday night as Warren had come away with a 2-point victory over the Indianapolis football team. The next day, Josh Allen would throw 5 touchdowns for 40 points, leaving the question, what would have happened in the inaugural Thunderball League if the AT&T building hadn't been bombed? If Nick and Warren hadn't made the trip to Tennessee? Had Warren not gotten too drunk one night and accidentally traded for Michael Thomas? Would Warren have become the first ever fantasy football champion with Alzheimer's? Or would it just be another forgotten season, just like his memory?
Can I go? Okay, so when I first met Warren, I'd say this is probably a couple years ago. I walked in, I was like, hey, I'm here to meet Warren, and this old guy's like, oh, hey, I'm Warren. I was like, oh, fuck, you're Warren? He's like, yeah, I know, I'm a little old. I'm around like 45. I was like, fuck me. I was like, in my head, I was thinking, okay, this guy's probably like 58 to 60. I was like, no way, he's fucking 45. Like, he's like barely older than my father. So I go up to him, I'm like, hello, Warren. My name is Nick. It's nice to meet you. I didn't see like a hearing aid in his ear or anything. Maybe he forgot in his bedroom or something. But I was like, fuck, there's no way he's 45 years old. No shot he's 45 years old. But Warren, he's cool, I guess. He does like the Pacers. I don't know if he likes the Pacers, but he likes the Colts and the Reds for sure. I mean, like, so that's good. Other than that, he's just okay, I guess. He's a shitty commissioner. Like, Vance and I had a trade where Vance just butt fucking me, and it took Vance 5 days to finish when it should take 30 minutes. Like, you're a commissioner of a fucking fantasy football. Like, if it takes 5 days to approve a trade, something's wrong. He's probably downstairs in his basement just fucking guzzling whiskey right now. But other than him being like a shitty fucking commissioner, he's okay. He's like an okay human. Like 5 out of 10. About 4.5 out of 10. He's okay. He's just okay.